Good afternoon. Administrator Ann Milgram just briefed the Deputy Attorney General and me on Phase 3 of the DEA's One Pill Can Kill initiative. Across the country, a nearly invisible poison, fentanyl, is devastating families and communities. Yet many young people who take fentanyl don't even know that they're taking it. That is because drug cartels are manufacturing and moving fake pills that are designed to look exactly like brand name drugs for pain, ADD, or anxiety. But instead, many contain deadly amounts of fentanyl. In addition, the cartels are marketing rainbow-colored pills that are designed to look like candy or prescription drugs. They can come in either a tablet form or in a block that looks like sidewalk chalk. These pills, too, contain fentanyl. We know from lab testing that these rainbow fentanyl is just as dangerous and just as deadly as other forms of fentanyl. And we know that violent criminal drug traffickers and their cartels bear the responsibility for this crisis that is poisoning and killing young Americans. The Justice Department, including the extraordinary professionals of the DEA, is working to disrupt and dismantle the operation of these cartels. We are doing everything in our power to get these deadly drugs off the streets and to save lives. From May through September of this year, DEA agents conducted 389 investigations, including 35 cartel-linked investigations in 201 cities. Over the course of these investigations, we seized over 10 million fake pills and 982 pounds of fentanyl powder across all 50 states. That is enough to kill 36 million Americans. In addition, agents seized 338 weapons during this operation, including shotguns, pistols, and hand grenades. Today's briefing also made clear the enormous amount of work that we still have to do. I've read too many reports on too many cases, including too many young people who ended up dying after taking just one pill laced with fentanyl, often disguised as something else. A 21-year-old who took a fake pill that turned out to be fentanyl. A 15-year-old found unresponsive by his 14-year-old brother. A 12-year-old later discovered by her mother, little brother, and grandfather, and an 18-month-old toddler exposed to fentanyl. These are only some of the precious lives that have been lost to fentanyl poisoning. The Justice Department will never give up and never let up in our effort to protect American lives. We will continue to work tirelessly to get deadly fentanyl out of our communities, and we will do everything in our power to dismantle and hold accountable the cartels that are putting it there. Americans must also work to protect each other. These tragedies can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Families should have open and honest conversations about the deadly consequences of fentanyl. Make sure your loved ones know that they should not take anything that they are not prescribed, they should not take a pill from a friend, and that they should not take a pill that they can buy on social media, because even one pill can kill. And now turn this over to Administrator Milgram.
Thank you, Attorney General Garland, Deputy Attorney General Monaco. We really appreciate you coming here today to be part of the DEA. I want to start by saying that at DEA, we believe that the greatest threat facing our communities, our families, our children, is the cartels, the two cartels in Mexico that are responsible for the vast amount of fentanyl that is in the United States today that is poisoning and killing Americans. 107,622 American lives were lost last year. These cartels are responsible for virtually all of the fentanyl, and they currently dominate the worldwide fentanyl distribution and supply chain. They're sourcing these precursor chemicals from China that are the building blocks of synthetic man-made fentanyl. They're in charge of the production of the fentanyl that's happening across Mexico. they're operating the transportation networks that are bringing the fentanyl into the United States. They run and oversee the sales of fentanyl on social media and in our communities, our cities, and our towns. And they're also responsible for the illicit laundering of money, the money that they're making off these deadly proceeds going between China and Mexico. What is critically important to us at DEA is for everyone to understand that the cartels are operating with deception and treachery. There are three particular ways they're doing that. The first is that they are making and pressing in Mexico the fentanyl into fake pills meant to look as though they were real pharmaceuticals, like they're OxyContin or hydrocodone or Percocet or Adderall or Xanax. They are not real medicines. They have none of those real medicines in them. They are fentanyl and they are filler. The second treachery is that they are now taking fentanyl in the US, fentanyl powder, and they're hiding it in other drugs, like cocaine, like heroin, like methamphetamine. And third, as the Attorney General mentioned, they are now making in Mexico, these two cartels, rainbow fentanyl powder, and they're pressing it also into rainbow fentanyl pills. What is critical also for us to express today, and that I had the opportunity to talk with the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General about, is that DEA has a strategic plan and that our top operational priority has been and will continue to be to defeat these two cartels. We have over 344 offices across the United States and across the world with more than 10,000 men and women. Their core mission today is to target those two networks as they operate worldwide, from China to Mexico to the United States. Internally at DEA, we have formed two counter-threat teams, one devoted completely to the Sinaloa cartel, one devoted completely to CJNG, the Jalisco cartel. Those teams consist of agents, intelligence analysts, data scientists, experts on precursor chemicals, experts on illicit finance, and their task is to continue to work with our field offices across the world to identify members of this network and to take a network approach to defeating the two cartels that we believe are responsible for the poisonings and the deaths that we're seeing in the United States. What we're also doing is the work that the Attorney General mentioned in our communities. One Pill Can Kill was in all 50, we seized fentanyl pills, and fentanyl powder in all 50 US states, in 202 cities across the United States. It is everywhere. It is across the United States. It is in rural, suburban, and urban areas. And we're not just targeting taking that fentanyl off the street. We target it as part of One Pill Can Kill, the individuals and the organizations operating in those communities that are responsible day in and day out for working with the cartels and that are poisoning and killing Americans at record rates. The Attorney General said so perfectly that one of the most important things we can do is talk to our loved ones, talk to our children, talk to our families, make sure that everyone understands what the three of us see and now understand, which is that many people who are dying of fentanyl poisoning had no idea that they were taking fentanyl. We are seeing tragedies unfold daily throughout our country, and we're doing everything we can to stop it by attacking these networks and by working in our communities to specifically go after these harms. I want to say one last thing, which is to thank all of you and to thank in particular the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General for coming to see the Faces of Fentanyl memorial that we have put up in DEA headquarters downstairs. That is why we do what we do. And when the Deputy Attorney General and the Attorney General were last here earlier this summer, we had only a couple hundred photographs that were there. Today we have thousands. The youngest, 17-month-old Serenity Faith, who died when she was exposed to fentanyl that her parents had. The oldest, Rob, 59. And there are countless others on our walls, as you saw earlier. And what's important to all of us is that we know 107,622 lives were lost, but each and every single one of those is a life lost, and we see their faces every day. Families of those lost are now coming to DEA headquarters. It is open to the public. We invite any member of the public to bring us a photograph or send us a photograph of their loved ones. It is a way that it reminds us of why we do the work that we do to seek justice for those lives that are lost, but also to work tirelessly to stop anyone else from dying from this terrible, terrible poison. Thank you.
We'll take some questions if you have them.
Jeff, you want to get this off?
It's obviously a tough issue. I just got back from Colorado where there's been a 70% jump in fentanyl-related deaths from 2020 to 2021. I talked to families who've lost loved ones and they are still hoping for justice. You talk about the cartels. There's a lot of talk about stopping it at the border, but it's still getting in huge numbers. It's almost like the floodgates are open. Why is that?
Look, every day, thousands of employees and professionals of the Department of Homeland Security, together with professionals across the United States government, including the Justice Department, are working to secure the border. What we're trying to do at the DEA, as the administrator described, is to take down the cartels, which are the cause in the United States, to take down the distributors for the cartels who are working in the United States, and to stop the companies that are providing the precursor chemicals from China. And we are working as hard as we possibly can on those methods of stopping this tragedy.
Sadie?
Hi. A couple questions. So firstly, I was hoping you could sort of describe your relationship with Mexico and whether there are still challenges in terms of, overcoming the strained relationship between the DEA and law enforcement in Mexico in combating this type of crime. And then AG, the Justice Department had been critical of the appointment of a special master, and so I'm sort of wondering your impressions of how that's going so far, and what your impressions of Judge Deary are, and to what extent the 11th Circuit's decision has allowed you to move forward with your investigation.
I'll take the second one because that'll be very brief, and then I'll turn it over to the administrator. You're asking a question about ongoing litigation, which we don't comment on except in our papers. And you're asking questions about relating to a criminal investigation, which we also don't comment upon except when we make filings. So with that, I'll let the administrator speak about the on-topic question.
So one of the things that we've been working on, and as part of the One Pill Can Kill law enforcement effort we just did, is linking back what we see happening in the United States, fentanyl poisoning deaths, directly to those cartels in Mexico, the two cartels I mentioned. In 35 of the investigations, we've already done that. So, and many of those are connected to drug poisoning deaths. So there's no question about who is responsible for the harm that is happening. And those two cartels are operating in Mexico. We always want to work in partnership with Mexican law enforcement and with Mexican authorities to stop what we know is happening. And again, we welcome any partnership worldwide with any country that we can have to stop this. What I want to also be very clear on is that we have extraordinary abilities in the United States through our drug kingpin statute, through our long arm statute. So we have the ability to investigate anyone worldwide, including those two cartels in Mexico, if they are distributing drugs in the United States, if they are responsible for American deaths in the United States. So we always seek partnership, but I want to be very clear in saying that we will do what we need to do to defeat those cartels.
Good.
Thanks. I have a couple of questions too. Hopefully one doesn't deal with litigation. But on the fentanyl issue, you made a point about appealing to American families. What can the federal government do, if anything, to help families make that distinction or push that point home to their loved ones who are struggling with this addiction? And the off-topic question is to the Attorney General: at what point are you in the assessment of potential damage that was done from the documents that were seized at Mar-a-Lago? Have you made any determinations that would cause you to take defensive action?
So on the latter question, again, I'm not going to be able to talk about it because it's about an ongoing investigation. I'll start on the other question and then let the administrator finish. On at least part of the question you asked, which is what can we tell families about how they can distinguish? The answer is they can't distinguish, but you can't buy legitimate these kind of legitimate drugs on social media. So the bottom line is nothing like this should be bought on social media.
Yes. The other thing I would say is that we had our first ever Families of Fentanyl Summit here in June. We had about 80 families. The Deputy AG was with us, and we spent the day talking with families who've lost loved ones and who've gone on to start organizations that are committed to raising public awareness, to helping families. It was an incredible day. And out of that, we've learned a lot about what we can do to support those families. The first and most important thing is to be leading in the fentanyl poisoning investigations as they take place. One of the things that's critical is that as local law enforcement or EMTs arrive, they often, will see this as though it's an accident because they don't know or they haven't experienced this before. When our teams and our folks are called in, and we do this across the country, we're able to treat it as what it is, which is a death investigation, a fentanyl poisoning investigation. And we're able to expand those cases and be able to reach and find who is selling those pills. There are many cases in these 390 investigations where there were multiple fentanyl poisoning deaths. We are able to stop those pills from being sold by the people in those communities once we learn who's responsible. And now we're also tracing them back to those cartels. On the families, and I think that this is so vitally important, we now have in November across the country, we will have fentanyl family summits to have the families come in with DEA to help us work together with them to do everything we can to raise public awareness and to also seek justice when lives are lost, but do everything we can to make sure people know what the harm is out there and prevent future lives from being lost.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Can I ask a question about the Meta report on China interfering in the midterm elections? Mr. Attorney General, there's been a report by Meta, parent company Facebook, that there may be attempts by China to meddle in the midterm elections. Is that something that you're focused on, or have you heard any?
We have been focused on, and there have been public reports from the intelligence community, not just China, but about interference by foreign nations in our elections, starting back some time ago and continuing all the way into the present. So yes, we're very concerned about it.
I just want to ask you one other quick question. A number of President Trump's allies have suggested, without any evidence, that you are conducting these investigations at the behest of the Biden White House. I just want to give you an opportunity to address that.
I think the president made clear when he appointed me that he would not interfere with in any way any criminal investigations, and he has stood by that, and there's been no White House participation whatsoever.
All right, last question to Congressman.
Can I just ask the administrator, can you just give me a snapshot in terms, like the rainbow fentanyl, for instance? How young are the youth that are being targeted by this? Can you give me a little snapshot of that?
So what we're seeing with rainbow fentanyl, we've now, DEA or our law enforcement partners, we've now seized it in 21 states. Today, we're still seeing more of the fake Oxy, the blue pills, or Percocet, or hydrocodone, but it is increasing, the amount of rainbow fentanyl that we're seizing across the country. We believe it is being marketed and aimed at young people. Now, it's really difficult to say the exact age. What we know is that it is all over social media, and social media obviously has young people of different ages. It is being sold oftentimes, as rainbow fentanyl, as rainbow pills, but
Skittles.
As Skittles, the nickname Skittles, Sweet Tarts. And so, when you just look at it, you can see it's meant to look like it is safer, like it's candy, like it's more of a toy. But again, I couldn't say the specific ages other than to say we do believe that it is being targeted at young adults, at young people. And again, the cartels, when we talk about their treachery, what they want to do is sell more fentanyl. Fentanyl is highly addictive. And if someone takes it and they potentially can become addicted, the cartels will make more money. And if they die for the cartels, that's the cost of doing business. There are 100 million other people on Snapchat, 150 million more Americans on Instagram, 180 million more on Facebook. So they believe that there will always be someone else that they can sell to. So on the rainbow fentanyl, we do believe it's largely driven by marketing. We are not seeing differences in the potency of the rainbow pills. So they're all about the same, and they're about the same potency of fentanyl as we see with the blue oxy pills.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Exit right out.